Hi, everyone. Hope you had a great conference so far, and thanks for joining me today. I'm excited to deep dive into our development process and how we achieved weekly releases. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Mihri. I'm originally from Turkey, and I moved to Berlin 9 years ago. And in 2009, I started my career as a software engineer, building mostly backend and database applications for enterprise. Later, I moved to mobile application development with pretty much with the hype of smartphones. And since then, I built apps that were used by millions of people daily. So e-commerce apps, banking apps, travel apps. And in my last role, I was head of mobile engineering at a mobility company in Berlin. And almost 3 years ago, we came together with my co-founder, Jana, and we decided to start Beams, first as a productivity tool for individuals. So our users use the tool daily for setting their goals, joining their meetings with a shortcut. And in between meetings, we have something we call focus mode. So we have a Pomodoro timer and a calendar blocker. So they also end the day with checking off their goals and reflecting the day. Then we moved to team features like team calendar health score or analysis of focus versus meeting time for teams, looking into the non-value adding meetings and the real cost of it. And now we are also generating tool usage insights to understand digitalization, tool adoption, and of course also reducing costs for companies. So first I will describe the company setup so you can take the content with grain of salt. We are a small team of 7. It's bigger than last year, but still a small team. So the time and resources are pretty limited. We are moving with the really fast MVP mindset. But still, we have 3 different products and quite a few integrations. We have a fairly complex architecture, so we have different roles using the B2B tool like owner, admin, super admin, member, accessing different data, and also doing different actions. And we also are backward compatible because we have an app that we support for the last year, all the versions as well. And we have automated deployment to staging and production environments after the code is published automatically after passing the tests. Today now I will start with the problem we had, but I think some of you might also resonate with the problem, and then talk about the way that we, what worked for us to unlock a finisher mindset. So, for us the problem is, how can we validate early as a small team? And as the team and product grows in time, how can we reduce time to market or keep it at least short? Agile, okay, everyone knows. Instead of long planning sessions or like processes documentation, you can focus really delivering early, learning from it, and iterating, and being really early in the market then. For instance, you can use Scrum, and as a team, you estimate and then you commit to deliver a scope of tasks at the end of a sprint. And ideally, this sprint is like 2 weeks, so you ensure that you could release by the end of that. And if there is a delay, the team is accountable. And it is good because it's also aligning different people like business or different stakeholders because it has rituals to align. These all sounds great, but for us, it's not efficient to have this Scrum rituals like daily stand-ups or sprint planning sessions. And we work remotely, so we travel a lot to San Francisco, or like our team is in different places working remotely. And it's also different time zones, so we need to mostly align asynchronously. And for us, estimations are mostly useless because sometimes a backend engineer is not available, and then a front-end engineer has to jump in, but they will implement it much slower. But in the end, the work will be finished and it will be released. So, you know, like this whole two-week sprints are great for companies with different repositories, different teams, so that you can have a control over what is released and orchestrate and synchronize this much better. But for us, it's simply like we need to release as soon as possible. But I think it's not just us, because so many other people experience frustrations about Scrum. That's why internet is full of people and discussions around like Scrum turning great engineers into average ones. And yeah, like when I think about it, first of all, developers' contribution is very limited. They can raise concerns upfront mainly during Scrum plannings, but also when they once commit, they need to execute. And so developers disagree and commit, but over time, this may distance them from themselves, like they distance themselves from the product in time, because they disagree more and more. I guess I need to get closer. Okay, so it's not just like a one-time result as well, because it changes the mindset of a developer. Because to estimate better, they start sticking into best practices, and they, like maybe they can estimate better. You can think, okay, what is wrong with best practices? But they follow patterns without critical thinking, or they don't offer customized solutions for unique problems, unique challenges. So this is exactly what is turning great developers into average ones. And yeah, what you measure also is shaping your whole company and your team. And if you start measuring the number of commits, then everybody will try to pick the low-hanging fruit, of course, like this guy states. Then there are some alternatives to Scrum. So, for instance, ShapeUp, like Ryan Singer from Basecamp team was here, so you can watch his talk from last year on YouTube. I haven't used this framework myself, so but something sounds really promising. So 6-week sprints, then you can have some space for unknowns, or you can build a better architecture as a software engineer. But it also has less meetings by the nature of it, because the cycle is only 6 weeks. And I also appreciate the fact that it's not estimate-driven. It's something called appetite-driven, and appetite means that like the resources that the stakeholders are willing to spend on. So that allows the team later to navigate between time to market and also quality much better. But some downsides is like 6 weeks is too long still for us and for the market. So it requires seniority in the team, much more experienced people. And there is also criticism about the betting table. So betting table is when the C-levels comes together with like senior developers, and they do some decisions there. So it feels much more top-down and much less autonomous for the teams as well. So this is the criticism. And with all these different needs in mind, like let's explore how we embrace the agile, and also fostered a finisher mindset for us. So it all starts with building a good system to, identify the work from different channels and funnel them into your own system. So we have a vision, and that's our compass. But since we are a very early stage company, everything changes with users' feedback or also the real usage data as well. So our users gives us some feedback on our Slack channel. We have a Slack channel for our community. We have more than 700 people there. They can also access immediate help. Also, they reach us on our customer support email. So all of these things are funneled into our systems. We do regular UI UX research, also check our socials and funnel them into, again, our Slack. And we have a publicly accessible feature request page for even users who are not using us yet. They are interested in, but they are not our users yet. So on top of these, of course, it's a must to also build a system that you don't wait for users to report bugs to you or some things you could understand upfront. So we do use like Sentry for web and backend applications, but also Crashlytics and on top of Apple's own crash logs. We do also, look into our cloud providers, Log Explorer. We have thresholds. As soon as like an error happens after the threshold is passed, we will be notified as well. And then we track events performed by our users, so we can iterate, like if something was successful or not, we can understand if this feature was, successful. Some things worked very well for us was like from day one we started, documenting as soon as a person starts having a problem and reaching us for a solution, or if they have a bug, then we started documenting these. And that was like a really cool thing because the whole team could then use this knowledge and help users themselves. But then we turned this into a help manual for our website, so our users can also they can solve their own problem now. And another thing which worked for us very well was the feature request page on our website landing page, because there people can request their integration or feature ideas, but they also leave an email. So as soon as we develop them, we can reach out back to them. Look, we have this now. Would you like to give it a try? And then people can also upvote other people's requests, so we know what is wanted the most. So all these features become projects in our linear dashboard. So if you haven't, like, who here heard linear before? Okay, 3 people. So it's like Jira, but it's really focused on developer teams. And the differentiation for me, it was at the beginning also a bit strange that you don't have a project for a product. So back then I was working at companies that we would have like a mobile application project, but that would always be there, and then we would have sprints for 2-week sprints for that product basically. But here a project is really a project, so it can be a feature or it can be maybe a new integration. But then once that's done, it ends. So there could be multiple products within a project as well. So that's a very cool way to think about it's not like a never-ending board, Jira board, but it is always having an end date and a scope. So, yeah. Now, since we captured all the work, it's time to prioritize and decide what to work on next. And of course, we want to work on the most impactful thing, that task that at any given time. But we need to decide what we want to have this impact on. So maybe you want to increase the number of users. It could also be the engagement of your users with the product, or having happy users. So you need to have some sort of goal in mind. But it's also fundamental to ask the right questions to measure the impact of a task. So if you want new users, you can also ask how many new users will be acquired by implementing this specific feature. Or for engagement, identify whether this specific feature will make the users come back to the tool more often. Or while looking into all the tasks that you could do, you can focus on the single feature that people identify as pain point the most. So ideally, they would then pay for it. So for us, we have quite a few people requesting for an Outlook integration. So it's clear that we now only have Google Calendar integration. So it's clear if we would have an Outlook integration, we would have more users. But it would not increase people's engagement within the product because they would use the same amount of the features. So it could potentially become a free-to-paid conversion. It would boost because we have a payment wall for multiple calendars. But for Jira integration, it would only increase the people spending, they would spend more time on the tool, but it would not increase the user number. And when it comes to B2B, and this is something that we also shifted from individual tool to B2B recently, so the question you ask is not always about the users, but then you need to focus on how can I, focus on the return of investment for the company. So how can I reduce costs for them, or how can I save time for the company? So, for instance, one feature request that we get from our B2B clients, so they want us to detect multiple tools that are seeming to be duplicates. So, for instance, Figma and Sketch, if the company is using both tools, we can identify it. And then, of course, if they choose to use only one of them, it will reduce the cost, but it can also save time for designers or marketing so they can reuse the already implemented components. And after prioritization, now we know what we want to work on and what are the most impactful ones, so we can start working on them. And how we do that, our workflow is a little bit custom for us. So we have a document for weekly planning, for instance. So because we have different time zones, people fill it asynchronously, and the meetings are optional. So we don't have any daily stand-ups or sprint planning. We don't do refinement meetings unless there is a specific domain input is required. And as developers, while for developers, we have this pair programming, so there we synchronize mostly. And then if the PRs are piled up, we have the, PR merging sessions together, so we go through the code together as well. And after the project starts, that's kind of unconventional. We still add new tickets. So if on the way something was, explored, then we can add this ticket into the project. And there is no concrete rules, but to minimize the conflicts and also the communication even, we try to apply these rules. So everyone has only one ticket in progress, and we minimize the review duration And before the project starts, we want every task to be in to-do. And we have one single board from idea to, done across all products. So that is a little bit different. So we have 2-3 different projects going on at the same time, but one of them has the highest priority to be released. And same project may have multiple products within that. And our backlog is not developers' backlog. It is the backlog as a feature or request idea. And there are multiple iterations between backlog till ready to implement, and this is our process of defining tasks. And it's mostly design, product, user research, but also user testing is happening in this loop, but also feasibility meetings or technical research is a part of it as well. And after this, when all tickets are ready to implement, that means the project is defined. Then we can initiate it and move all the things, the tasks to do, and developers can start working on it. Okay, so one other thing that we don't do is we don't do any estimations. but we mark tickets as blocking release. So it's a mindset that like without this, this project would be incomplete. So these tickets are not the ones that are going to take the longest time, or they are, you know, very hard to implement from an engineering perspective, but it's actually very similar to this appetite-driven methodology I just mentioned. So, for instance, we have a project called organization setup, and it was required that like we need to identify if the person trying to log in and connect their account is a workspace admin. And that is a required and blocking task, because without that, we cannot release this project. But there are several other error types which could happen within this flow. For them, we deprioritize it. And you know, if we are good in time, then we can implement all of them. But if it becomes longer and longer, things takes longer, then we only focus on this critical part that we identified as high, and we can release at the end of it. So this allows us to early validate or invalidate and learn from it as well. We can always add new features on top of it. So it's a little bit like an MVP mindset for the features, because we are used to MVP mindset for you know, having the whole project. So yeah, in reality, things can still change on the way, of course, and there is planned work and last-minute hot fixes, but also we have this space for the unknowns, so we can reroute and do, you know, changes while the project is ongoing. And the speed has to justify the time, the trade-off in quality. So here, it's always understood that like business wants speed and developers wants the quality, but actually, like when you think about it, it is today's early time to market, it has to justify tomorrow's late or delay on time to market, because it's clear that if you have speed now and low quality, the bugs and maintenance will you know, also cause delays for tomorrow. So yeah, like this is how we balance business, product, and tech, and happy to answer if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mihri.